He followed her for weeks, planning to expose her fake, wealthy lifestyle, but froze in shock when 3 boys with his exact eyes and smile kissed their billionaire mother goodbye while her butler held the limo door. But before we dive into the full story, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Now subscribe to the channel and let's get started. Maya Johnson's fingers flew across her laptop keyboard, her eyes scanning complex financial analyses as the clock in Stanford's library struck midnight. While most of her classmates had retreated to their comfortable apartments hours ago, Maya remained, determined to excel in a world that constantly reminded her she didn't belong. "The library's closing, miss," said the security guard, his voice tinged with sympathy. "Just 5 more minutes," Maya pleaded, rubbing her tired eyes. Unlike her wealthy classmates who coasted through their MBA programs on family connections, Maya's full scholarship demanded excellence. Every assignment, every presentation was a testament that a girl from Oakland deserved her place among America's elite. As she packed her books, her phone buzzed with a text from Sebastian. "Still awake, brilliant girl? Meet me for breakfast tomorrow?" Maya smiled, her exhaustion momentarily forgotten. 8 months ago, their paths had crossed at a sustainable energy lecture, a subject that, as she would later learn, Sebastian Reed attended only to appease his family's petroleum company board. She could still picture him that day, lounging in the back row with aristocratic nonchalance, his steel blue eyes surveying the room as if assessing property. When the professor had asked for opposing viewpoints on renewable energy investments, Sebastian had risen, his voice carrying the confidence of generational wealth. "These sustainable ventures make for excellent PR," he had drawled. "But let's not delude ourselves. Petroleum is the backbone of American prosperity and will remain so for decades." Maya had challenged him immediately, armed with research and conviction. Their debate continued long after class ended, spilling into a nearby cafe where argument transformed into mutual fascination. The heir to Reed Petroleum, one of Texas's largest oil dynasties, found himself captivated by the scholarship student whose intelligence matched her natural beauty. "You're different," he'd told her on their 3rd date, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "Most people just agree with whatever I say." Now, 8 months later, Maya found herself living a fairy tale she'd never dared imagine. Sharing Sebastian's Manhattan penthouse, attending galas on his arm, introduced to a world of privilege she'd only glimpsed through magazines. The following morning, Maya entered the upscale breakfast spot where Sebastian waited, his golden hair catching the sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. He rose to kiss her cheek, designer cologne enveloping her as he pulled out her chair with practiced elegance. "I missed you last night," he said, pouring her coffee. "Another late study session?" "The Peterson analysis was trickier than I expected," Maya admitted. "But I think I'm sure you conquered it," Sebastian interrupted, reaching across the table to capture her hand. With a theatrical gesture, he produced a small velvet box. "I had something else in mind for our conversation this morning." Maya's breath caught as he revealed a 4-carat diamond ring, its facets throwing rainbows across the white tablecloth. "8 months with you has shown me what I've been missing," Sebastian declared, his confidence never wavering. "You're different from the others, Maya. Your mind, your spirit, you challenge me in ways no one ever has." Tears welled in Maya's eyes as he slipped the massive ring onto her finger. That night, they celebrated with Cristal champagne in their penthouse, the Manhattan skyline twinkling beyond floor-to-ceiling windows that might as well have been the boundary between Maya's past and her glittering future. "To us," Sebastian toasted, crystal flutes clinking, "to the brilliant Maya Johnson becoming Maya Reed." 3 weeks later, Maya stared at the plastic stick in her bathroom, heart hammering against her ribs. 2 pink lines, unmistakable, pregnant. She sank onto the marble floor, mind racing. They'd been careful, mostly. There was that night after the charity gala, champagne clouding their judgment. Maya pressed a hand to her still flat stomach, a mix of terror and wonder washing over her. Sebastian had never discussed children. His focus remained on eventually taking over Reed Petroleum from his aging father, expanding the empire his great-grandfather had built. Yet something told Maya this unexpected development might bridge their different worlds permanently. That evening, Maya transformed their dining room into a romantic haven. Candles, flowers, Sebastian's favorite seafood pasta. She wore the emerald dress he'd bought her last month, her hair arranged in the loose waves he preferred. "What's the occasion?" Sebastian asked, loosening his tie as he accepted the glass of water she offered instead of his usual scotch. "I wanted tonight to be special," Maya said, her voice steadier than she felt. The evening progressed perfectly through dinner, Sebastian sharing amusing anecdotes about his board meeting while Maya listened, waiting for the right moment. As they finished dessert, chocolate soufflé that had taken 3 attempts to perfect, Maya reached for his hand. "Sebastian, I have news." She took a deep breath. "I'm pregnant." The transformation was instantaneous. Sebastian's handsome face froze, then hardened, blue eyes turning to ice. He withdrew his hand as if burned. "Pregnant?" he repeated, the word dripping with disdain. "You can't be serious." Maya faltered, her carefully rehearsed words evaporating. "I am. About 6 weeks, I think. I know it's unexpected, but fix it." The words sliced through her explanation. "What?" Sebastian stood abruptly, pacing the dining room. "Don't play naive, Maya. It doesn't suit your intelligence." He turned, regarding her as one might view a particularly disappointing investment. "You really think I'd ruin my future with a girl from Oakland who's only here because of a scholarship?" Each word hit like physical blows. Maya rose shakily, reaching for him. "Sebastian, this is our baby. I thought—" "You thought what?" he snarled. "That getting pregnant would secure your position? My parents warned me you were just another gold digger trying to claw your way into society." "Gold digger?" Maya whispered, tears blurring her vision. "I never asked you for anything." Sebastian laughed, cruel and dismissive. "The penthouse? The clothes? The lifestyle you could never afford on your own? You've been taking plenty." "I never wanted those things," Maya protested. "I wanted you." "Well, you can't have me," Sebastian declared, grabbing her left hand. With surgical precision, he twisted the diamond ring from her finger. "My parents were right. This was a mistake." Before Maya could process what was happening, Sebastian strode to the window, slid it open, and flung the 4-carat diamond into the night air, 32 floors above Manhattan. "Consider our engagement as lost as that ring." Maya collapsed into a chair, shock rendering her speechless as Sebastian gathered his keys and wallet. "I'll be at the club. When I return, I expect you'll have come to your senses about terminating this inconvenience." He paused at the door. "Don't make this messier than it needs to be, Maya. You're smart enough to know when you're beaten." The night passed in a blur of tears and disbelief. Maya curled around her stomach protectively, whispering reassurances to the life within, reassurances she didn't believe herself. Morning brought no relief, only the clinical ping of a banking notification on her phone. Sebastian had transferred $10,000 with a message that made bile rise in her throat. "For the abortion. Consider this the last cent you'll receive from the Reed family. I've signed a confidentiality agreement on your behalf. Speak about us or this pregnancy and my lawyers will destroy what remains of your life." Maya barely had time to process this cruelty when her email chimed. The Stanford administration informed her that her scholarship had been revoked due to irregularities discovered in her application. The doors that had opened for the promising student now slammed shut violently. Dazed, Maya attended a job interview that afternoon, a position well below her qualifications, but one that might provide enough to survive. The interviewer's eyes flickered to her resume, then back to her face. "I'm sorry, but we've actually filled this position," he said, not meeting her gaze. "Someone had gotten to him," the Reed influence casting a longer shadow than she'd imagined. Returning to the building she'd called home for months, Maya found a security guard blocking her path, his expression uncomfortable but resolute. "I'm sorry, Ms. Johnson, but Mr. Reed has changed the locks and requested your belongings be removed." He gestured to 3 hastily packed suitcases sitting in the opulent lobby, designer clothes spilling from their confines. "He asked me to inform you that your access has been permanently revoked." Curious residents pretended not to stare as Maya gathered her belongings, dignity crumbling with each pitying glance. The doorman who had greeted her by name every morning now avoided eye contact, helping her load her life's possessions into a taxi. "Where to, miss?" the driver asked. Maya stared blankly at the Manhattan skyline, reality crashing down. Her scholarship gone, her housing gone, her relationship shattered, and a new life growing inside her that Sebastian had deemed an inconvenience worth only $10,000 to eliminate. She had exactly $2,417 in her personal account, money saved from her part-time campus job. Not enough to return to Oakland and face her struggling parents with her failure, not enough to restart in New York. "Chicago," she said finally. "Take me to the bus station." 2 weeks later, Maya lay on rough sheets in a dingy motel on Chicago's outskirts, carefully rationing her dwindling funds. The room smelled of industrial cleaner and old cigarettes, a universe away from the luxury she'd briefly inhabited. She'd applied for 17 jobs, securing 2, night cleaning at an office building and daytime waitressing at a diner. Her hands, once manicured for corporate presentations, now cracked from industrial cleaning products. Her body, previously dressed in designer clothes, hid beneath loose uniforms that concealed her gradually swelling abdomen. As rain battered the window of her dismal temporary home, Maya placed a hand on her stomach, startled to feel a flutter of movement, her first tangible connection to the lives growing within her. An ultrasound the previous week had revealed the shocking truth. Not 1 baby, but 3. Triplets. "We'll be okay," she whispered, unsure if she was trying to convince the babies or herself. "Somehow, we'll be okay." Tears slid down her cheeks as she calculated the impossibility of her situation, raising 3 children alone, without support, education incomplete, working minimum-wage jobs while pregnant with triplets. The practical part of her brain screamed that Sebastian's cruel solution was the only logical path. But something deeper, something forged in the determination that had carried her from Oakland to Stanford, refused to surrender. "He thinks I'm beaten," she murmured, wiping away tears. "But he has no idea who he's dealing with." Alone in that decrepit motel room, Maya Johnson couldn't possibly imagine that 15 years later, she would command a billion-dollar empire built upon the ruins of Sebastian Reed's legacy. The drizzle outside Maya's motel window had turned into a downpour, the sound of water hitting the cracked asphalt offering a rhythmic backdrop to her restless thoughts. She stared at the stained ceiling, one hand resting protectively over her stomach, the other clutching a wrinkled classified section from yesterday's newspaper with 3 job listings circled in red pen. Morning sickness hit with a vengeance at 5:30, forcing Maya to stumble to the bathroom. After rinsing her mouth, she studied her reflection in the speckled mirror. Dark circles under her eyes, complexion sallow, hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. Nothing about this exhausted woman resembled the confident MBA candidate who had once challenged Sebastian Reed in that sustainable energy lecture. "One day at a time," she whispered to herself, a mantra that had carried her through the past month. She dressed quickly in the only outfit that still concealed her growing belly, black slacks with an elastic waistband and an oversized button-down shirt she'd found at a thrift store. By 6:15, Maya was waiting at the bus stop, rain soaking through her inadequate jacket. The other passengers, mostly service workers and night shift employees heading home, kept to themselves, eyes downcast, shoulders hunched against the weather and early hour. "Morning, Carol," Maya greeted the middle-aged receptionist at Lakeside Executive Suites as she signed in for her morning cleaning shift. "Any special requests today?" "Conference Room B had some kind of food fight disguised as a retirement party," Carol replied, not looking up from her romance novel. "And Mr. Peterson in 310 complained again about his trash not being emptied." Maya nodded, ignoring the cramping in her lower back as she pushed her cleaning cart down the hallway. For 4 hours, she scrubbed toilets, mopped floors, and emptied trash bins in offices nicer than any she'd ever hoped to work in again. Each executive suite contained reminders of the life she'd nearly had: framed diplomas from prestigious universities, family photos in silver frames, leather-bound planners filled with important meetings. As she scrubbed dried wine from Conference Room B's carpet, Maya's thoughts drifted to Sebastian. Was he in a meeting now? Did he occasionally think of her? Or had he already replaced her with another exotic girlfriend to shock his country club friends? Had he told anyone about the babies? Or were they just an inconvenience he'd paid to eliminate? "Stop it," she muttered to herself, scrubbing harder. "He doesn't matter anymore." By 11, Maya had changed into her waitress uniform in the employees' bathroom of Gino's diner, her feet already aching as she clocked in for her second shift of the day. "You're looking pale, honey," observed Denise, the motherly head waitress who had taken Maya under her wing. "You sure you should be working doubles in your condition?" Maya forced a smile. "I'm fine. The morning sickness is getting better." This was a lie. It was getting worse. But Maya couldn't afford to lose either job. Her meager savings were dwindling, and the $10,000 from Sebastian remained untouched in a separate account. She refused to use it for anything except the baby's future needs. Taking it for herself would feel like accepting his evaluation of their worth. The lunch rush at Gino's was particularly brutal. A businessman in an expensive suit reminiscent of Sebastian's wardrobe snapped his fingers to get her attention, then complained that his coffee wasn't hot enough. When Maya returned with a fresh cup, he deliberately knocked it over, sending the scalding liquid across the table and onto her uniform. "Clumsy pregnant girl," he muttered loud enough for nearby tables to hear, his eyes flickering dismissively to her midsection. "This is why you people shouldn't be working in your condition." Maya bit her tongue, fighting back tears as she mopped up the mess. Denise appeared at her side with fresh napkins, whispering, "Don't let jerks like him get to you. Some men just can't stand seeing a woman making it on her own." Making it on her own. Was that what this was? Maya wondered as she continued her shift, ignoring the coffee stains spreading across her cheap polyester uniform. It felt more like drowning in slow motion. 3 days later, Maya sat in a hard plastic chair at County Memorial's free prenatal clinic, nervously twisting the frayed hem of her shirt as she waited to be called. All around her were other pregnant women, many looking as tired and alone as she felt. "Johnson?" called a nurse, mispronouncing her name slightly. The examination room was cold, the paper gown thin and crackling as Maya perched on the edge of the table. Dr. Reynolds, a harried-looking woman in her 50s, entered without looking up from her clipboard. "First pregnancy, correct?" she asked, finally meeting Maya's eyes with practiced clinical detachment. "Yes." The doctor's hands were cool on Maya's abdomen as she palpated gently. "You're measuring large for 14 weeks. Let's do an ultrasound." The gel was cold, the pressure of the wand uncomfortable. Maya turned her head toward the grainy black-and-white screen, expecting to see the small bean-shaped form she'd imagined. Dr. Reynolds paused, adjusted something and moved the wand again. Her professional demeanor cracked slightly. "Ms. Johnson, are multiples common in your family?" Maya's heart skipped. "Not that I know of. Why?" "Because I'm detecting 3 separate heartbeats." The doctor pointed to the screen. 1, 2, 3. You're carrying triplets." The room seemed to tilt. "Triplets?" Maya whispered. "Identical, from the positioning. 1 egg that split 3 ways." Dr. Reynolds scribbled notes. This significantly changes your prenatal care requirements. You'll need more frequent appointments, additional supplements, and you should prepare for possible bed rest in later trimesters. Maya nodded numbly, still staring at the 3 tiny flickering heartbeats on the screen. "Do you have support at home?" the doctor asked, a rare note of concern entering her voice as she took in Maya's worn clothing and solitary presence. Triplet pregnancies are high-risk and physically demanding. "I have—" Maya started, then stopped. What did she have? No family nearby, no friends in this new city, no partner, no stable housing, 2 physically demanding jobs, and barely enough money for 1 baby, let alone 3. "I'll figure it out," she finished lamely. Back in the motel room that evening, Maya sat cross-legged on the bed, surrounded by pregnancy pamphlets and budget calculations. The arithmetic was merciless. Even working both jobs, she couldn't afford appropriate housing, prenatal care, and necessities for 3 infants. The practical solution loomed over her, the one Sebastian had so coldly paid for. But as she placed her hand on her stomach, feeling the first definite movements of the babies within, no longer flutters but actual tiny kicks, Maya knew she couldn't do it. These 3 lives were part of her now, regardless of their father's rejection. "We'll find a way," she promised the darkness. For 2 more weeks, Maya pushed herself beyond exhaustion, working both jobs while her body struggled to nourish 3 growing babies. Her ankles swelled, her back ached constantly, and dizziness became a frequent companion. On a particularly grueling night, after scrubbing 11 executive bathrooms, Maya knelt to clean the toilet in the 12th when the room began to spin violently. She clutched the porcelain bowl, trying to steady herself, but darkness crept in from the edges of her vision. When she opened her eyes again, a man's face hovered above her, dark skin, kind eyes, salt and pepper beard. He wore the gray uniform of the building's maintenance staff, his name badge reading Marcus Williams, head custodian. "Easy now," he said, his voice deep and gentle. "The ambulance is on its way." "No ambulance," Maya protested weakly, trying to sit up. "No insurance. Can't afford—" Marcus supported her back as she struggled to rise. "You hit your head when you fell. You need to get checked out, especially in your condition." Maya felt tears of frustration and fear well up. "Please, I can't lose this job. I'm fine, really." Something in her desperate tone must have reached him, because Marcus studied her face for a long moment before nodding slowly. "Tell you what, my shift ends in 20 minutes. Let me drive you to the urgent care clinic on Harrison. They work with uninsured patients. If the doctor says you're okay, no ambulance. But you're not finishing your shift, and that's non-negotiable." Too weak to argue, Maya agreed. The urgent care doctor confirmed mild dehydration and exhaustion, prescribing rest and fluids but finding no serious injury from the fall. In the parking lot afterward, Maya realized she had missed the last bus back to her motel. When she explained her predicament, Marcus offered to drive her. "It's on my way home," he said, though Maya suspected this was a kind lie. His car was an older model sedan, meticulously clean inside. As they drove through Chicago's nighttime streets, Maya found herself telling this stranger her story. Not all of it, but enough. The pregnancy, the 2 jobs, the struggle to make ends meet. "My motel only lets me rent by the week," she concluded, embarrassed by how much she had revealed. "And the rate keeps going up. I'm looking for a cheaper place, but everywhere wants first and last month's rent plus security deposit." Marcus was quiet for several blocks before asking, "How far along are you?" 16 weeks, with triplets." He whistled softly. "That's a heavy load to carry alone." When they reached the rundown motel, Maya thanked him profusely for the ride. To her surprise, Marcus turned off the engine and faced her. "I don't normally do this," he began, seeming to choose his words carefully. "But I have a spare room. My wife passed 3 years ago, cancer, and the place feels too empty. It's nothing fancy, but it's clean, safe, and the rent would be whatever you can afford until you get on your feet." Maya stared at him, searching for hidden motives in his expression but finding only sincere concern. "Why would you help me? You don't even know me." Marcus smiled sadly. "Because 17 years ago, my Lydia was in a similar situation. Pregnant, alone, scared. A kind woman took her in when nobody else would. That kindness gave my son a chance to be born. I'm just paying it forward." In the harsh fluorescent light of the motel parking lot, Maya made a decision that would alter the course of her life. She agreed to see the apartment the next day. Marcus's home was a modest 2-bedroom in a working-class neighborhood. The spare room was small but immaculately clean, with a window overlooking a tiny courtyard. Photos of a smiling black woman, Lydia, she presumed, adorned the living room walls alongside pictures of a young man in a college graduation gown. "That's my son, Darius," Marcus explained, following her gaze. "He's teaching English in Japan now." Within 3 days, Maya had moved her few possessions into the spare room. The arrangement was straightforward. She would contribute what she could for rent and utilities, and they would share grocery and cooking responsibilities. For the first time since Sebastian's rejection, Maya slept through the night, the constant knot of anxiety in her chest loosening slightly. Here was safety, if not luxury. Here was kindness without expectation. Late one night, Maya awoke to painful cramping. Frightened, she knocked on Marcus's door. Without question, he drove her to the emergency room, waited 4 hours in uncomfortable chairs, and brought her home when the doctor assured them it was just normal ligament pain from her expanding uterus. As weeks passed, their arrangement evolved into a comfortable routine. Marcus proved to be a thoughtful roommate, quiet, respectful of her privacy, and genuinely concerned about her well-being. He insisted she quit the more physically demanding cleaning job, offering to help with expenses until she found something less strenuous. One evening, sipping herbal tea in the kitchen, Maya finally asked the question that had been troubling her. "Marcus, why are you doing all this for me? The truth." He considered her question seriously before answering. "Because helping someone who needs it is the right thing to do, and maybe because this apartment has been too quiet since Lydia died. Having someone to care about again, it helps me too." That night, sitting in her small but comfortable room, Maya opened the envelope containing Sebastian's $10,000. For the first time, she allowed herself to think of it not as blood money for an abortion, but as the only contribution the baby's father would make to their future. "It's not enough," she whispered to her growing belly, "but it's a start." While the doctors corralled to save her 3 premature babies, Maya couldn't imagine that these 3 lives would become the seeds of an empire that would one day bring Sebastian Reed to his knees, begging for a second chance. The harsh fluorescent lights of Chicago Memorial Hospital's neonatal intensive care unit cast an unforgiving glow over Maya's exhausted face. Through the clear walls of 3 separate incubators, she watched her sons, born 7 weeks premature, fight for their lives. Each tiny body, barely larger than her hand, was connected to a bewildering array of tubes and monitors. "You can touch them," the NICU nurse encouraged gently. "Put your hands through the ports. Skin contact helps them stabilize." Maya hesitated, overwhelmed by their fragility. Adam, the firstborn by 2 minutes, had required resuscitation immediately after birth. Alexander followed with stronger lungs but worrying jaundice. Anthony, the smallest at just under 4 pounds, had emerged last with a fierce cry that belied his miniature size. "They won't break," the nurse added, recognizing the fear in Maya's eyes. Carefully, Maya slipped her hands through the circular openings of Adam's incubator. Her fingertips brushed against skin so delicate she could see blue veins mapping his entire body. To her surprise, his tiny fingers reflexively curled around hers. "That's it," the nurse nodded approvingly. "He knows his mother's touch." Tears streamed down Maya's face. Not the devastated tears she'd shed when Sebastian abandoned her, nor the desperate ones during 16 hours of premature labor, but something new. These were tears of fierce, protective love unlike anything she'd ever experienced. "They're fighters," Marcus observed from the doorway, 2 cups of vending machine coffee in hand. He'd been there throughout her labor, holding her hand and coaching her through each contraction with a steady calm that anchored her panic. "Like their mother," he added, handing her a coffee. For the next 3 weeks, Maya's life revolved entirely around the NICU. She spent every possible moment beside the incubators, talking softly to her sons, reading children's books aloud, and singing lullabies remembered from her own childhood. When required to leave for staff shift changes, she returned to Marcus's apartment only to shower and change clothes before hurrying back. The day the hospital finally released them, Adam first, then Alexander and Anthony 2 days later, felt like both triumph and terror. Standing in the hospital parking lot, Maya stared at the 3 car seats secured in Marcus's sedan, reality crashing over her. "How am I going to do this?" she whispered, panic rising in her throat. Marcus placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "One day at a time, sometimes 1 hour at a time." His modest apartment had been transformed during the baby's hospital stay. The spare room now contained 3 second-hand cribs arranged in a tight triangle, a changing table rescued from a thrift store, and stackable plastic drawers filled with donated onesies and diapers. Marcus had repainted the walls a gentle yellow and hung simple fabric mobiles above each crib. The first night home was a blur of feeding, changing, soothing, and brief, insufficient moments of sleep. By sunrise, Maya sat cross-legged on the living room floor, a baby asleep on each arm and the third in her lap, her eyes burning from exhaustion. "I didn't know it was physically possible to be this tired," she admitted when Marcus emerged from his room, immediately filling bottles with the prepared formula. "Let me take them," he offered. "You get some sleep." "You have work in an hour," Maya protested weakly. "Called in, told them I had a family emergency." He carefully lifted Anthony from her lap. "Which isn't a lie." Family. The word hung in the air between them, unexpected but not unwelcome. The days blurred into weeks, each one an endurance test of Maya's physical and emotional limits. She developed systems out of necessity, color-coding the identical boys with different colored socks, keeping meticulous notes on feeding schedules and learning each one's unique cries despite their identical appearance. Marcus adapted his work schedule to help whenever possible, often taking night shifts at the building so he could be home during the day while Maya caught precious hours of sleep. His experience raising his own son made him an invaluable guide through the terrifying landscape of newborn care. "Lydia would have loved this chaos," he remarked one evening, expertly burping Alexander while Maya simultaneously nursed Adam and rocked Anthony's bouncer with her foot. When the triplets reached 3 months, Marcus convinced Maya to accept a part-time remote data entry position a former tenant had mentioned. The pay was minimal, but the flexibility allowed her to work during the baby's increasingly synchronized nap times. "You need to keep your skills sharp," he insisted. "These boys will need your MBA brain to support them someday." Maya set up a small workstation in the corner of the living room, determined to contribute more to the household expenses. On good days, she managed 3 hours of work between feedings and diaper changes. On bad days, when all 3 boys decided sleep was optional, she typed one-handed with a baby cradled against her chest. Every evening after dinner, while Marcus did the dishes, Maya spread her textbooks across the kitchen table, determined to continue her education through online courses. The student loans had come due, but she'd managed to defer them based on financial hardship. Still, the clock was ticking. "You should sleep when they sleep," Marcus gently admonished, finding her highlighting notes at 2 in the morning, Adam snuffling softly in the portable crib beside her. "I can't afford to," Maya replied, rubbing her temples. "Sebastian took Stanford, but he doesn't get to take my future, too." As the babies approached 6 months, their personalities began emerging despite their identical appearances. Adam, the firstborn, watched everything with intense focus, his eyes tracking moving objects with analytical precision. Alexander seemed fascinated by how things worked, constantly attempting to dismantle his toys. Anthony, the smallest at birth, had grown the fastest and developed an early infectious laugh that could dissolve even Maya's most stressed moments into joy. "They're extraordinary," Marcus observed one Sunday morning, sitting on the living room floor as the triplets practiced rolling over. "Most babies their age, especially preemies, aren't this responsive yet." Maya beamed with pride, capturing the moment with her phone's camera. Sometimes, when exhaustion threatened to overwhelm her, she scrolled through these photos, physical evidence that despite everything, she was building something beautiful. Yet in quiet moments, doubts crept in. The apartment, while safe and clean, was growing increasingly cramped as the boys became more mobile. Her savings remained negligible despite ruthless budgeting, and lurking beneath daily concerns was the knowledge that one day these 3 boys might ask about their father. One evening, while the triplets slept simultaneously, a rare miracle, Maya found herself scanning news websites. A headline caught her eye: "America's dangerous dependence on fossil fuels, a preventable bottleneck for economic progress." The article detailed how petroleum companies like Reed Petroleum maintained an artificial stranglehold on American energy by lobbying against renewable alternatives. A quote from an energy researcher claimed that with proper investment in storage solutions, solar energy could replace 60% of petroleum usage within a decade. Maya read the article twice, something stirring in her mind. Her final project at Stanford, before Sebastian's rejection derailed her education, had focused on investment strategies for emerging energy technologies. She still had her research notes, saved on a cheap USB drive she'd managed to grab during her hasty eviction. Opening her laptop, Maya began searching recent developments in solar energy storage. Hours passed as she fell into a research hole, taking notes in a composition notebook as connections formed in her mind. The fundamental problems with solar energy weren't generation, but storage and distribution, exactly the areas where her financial background could identify inefficiencies. When Marcus returned from his evening shift, he found Maya surrounded by printouts and scribbled notes, the most energized he'd seen her since the babies were born. "Did something happen?" he asked, hanging his jacket. "I think I found it," Maya replied, eyes bright with purpose. "What I'm supposed to do next." Over instant coffee, she explained her nascent idea, developing more efficient battery technology for storing solar energy, combined with a financial model that made renewable energy more accessible to average consumers. "The technology exists," she explained, pointing to her notes. "It's the implementation and financial structure that's lacking. Reed Petroleum and companies like them maintain power by making renewable alternatives seem economically unfeasible. But they're not. They're just disorganized." Marcus studied her diagrams with genuine interest. "You really understand this stuff, don't you?" "It was my specialization before—" She trailed off, the familiar pain of Sebastian's betrayal briefly clouding her enthusiasm. "Before that fool let you go," Marcus completed firmly. "His loss." Maya smiled gratefully. "The problem is, even basic prototype development requires capital I don't have." "What about that money?" Marcus asked carefully, referencing the $10,000 from Sebastian that Maya had mentioned but never touched. She tensed. "That was for an abortion. Using it feels wrong." "Reframe it," Marcus suggested. "Use his money to build something that will directly compete with everything he stands for." "That's not accepting his terms. It's turning them against him." The logic appealed to Maya's sense of justice. That night, while the triplets slept, she opened the envelope containing Sebastian's cash settlement for the first time. Spreading the bills across the kitchen table, she made a decision. "This isn't his money anymore," she whispered to her sleeping sons. "It's seed capital for your future." In the following weeks, Maya divided her time between caring for the triplets, her part-time job, and developing what was evolving into a business plan. Marcus continued providing steadfast support, often sitting with her in the evenings to discuss her ideas, offering practical perspectives that complemented her academic approach. Late one night, Maya sat at the kitchen table, the baby monitor beside her laptop displaying 3 peacefully sleeping 6-month-olds. She was sketching diagrams of solar panel configurations when Anthony's soft cry came through the speaker. Putting down her pencil, she went to check on him. In the dim nursery, she lifted Anthony gently, his brothers still sleeping soundly in their cribs. Rocking him against her shoulder, Maya looked at the 3 tiny lives she'd brought into the world against all odds. "One day," she whispered to Anthony as his eyes drifted closed again, "we're going to build something so big that Reed Petroleum will look like a backyard operation. Your father will look at you 3 and realize the investment he rejected would have been worth billions, not just in money, but in love and legacy." Returning to the kitchen, Maya opened a fresh page in her notebook and wrote at the top, "Williams Energy Revolution, Business Plan." Beneath it, she began outlining the structure of what would become her empire, not built on vengeance, but on vision for a better future. In that small kitchen, surrounded by baby bottles and diapers, the seed of an energy revolution was being planted, and with it, the promise of a future where Sebastian Reed would be forced to face the consequences of his abandonment. 2 years passed, each day both agonizingly slow and bewilderingly fast. Maya stood in the modest living room of Marcus's apartment, her graduation cap slightly askew as she balanced Anthony on her hip. The 2-year-old tugged at the tassel dangling from the cap, while his identical brothers crawled energetically around her feet, occasionally pulling themselves up on the furniture. "Say, congratulations, Mommy," Marcus encouraged, aiming his phone camera at the 4 of them. "Conga-shuns," Adam attempted, his analytical mind already working hard on language acquisition. Alexander merely grinned, showing his newly erupted teeth, while Anthony buried his face shyly in Maya's shoulder. The online graduation ceremony had just ended, playing on Marcus's laptop on the coffee table. It wasn't Stanford, but Maya had completed her MBA through an accredited online program, maintaining a perfect GPA despite the chaos of raising triplets and working part-time. "I can't believe we did it," Maya said, sinking onto the couch as the boys immediately scrambled to climb onto her lap. "There were days I thought this would never happen." "You did it," Marcus corrected, setting down the phone to join them. "I just kept the little tornadoes occupied during exam weeks." Maya smiled, knowing this drastically understated his contribution. Over the past 2 years, Marcus had evolved from compassionate landlord to essential partner in this unexpected family venture. His steady presence provided the foundation that allowed Maya to pursue her education while raising 3 active toddlers. "Well, celebration dinner is in order," Marcus announced. "I got that mac and cheese they like and real adult food for us." Later that evening, after the triplets were finally asleep, Maya and Marcus sat at the kitchen table with mugs of tea, a comfortable silence between them. "I applied for 5 different loans today," Maya said finally, "for the prototype development." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "And?" "All rejected. One banker actually laughed when I mentioned solar energy storage." She sighed, running a finger along the rim of her mug. "Without collateral or an established business history, I'm a high-risk investment." "Their loss," Marcus stated matter-of-factly. "Remember what happened with those Stanford professors who said your initial concept wouldn't work?" Maya smiled despite her frustration. 6 months earlier, she'd contacted her former professors seeking feedback on her energy storage concept. Most hadn't bothered to reply. One had dismissively suggested she stick to simpler projects more appropriate for a single mother. "I remember proving them wrong when I built the small-scale test model," she acknowledged. "Exactly. And you'll prove these bankers wrong, too." The garage attached to Marcus's apartment building had become Maya's unofficial laboratory. The building manager, impressed by Marcus's years of reliable service, had agreed to let them use the space as long as it didn't interfere with residents' parking. Here, Surrounded by second-hand equipment and components purchased with Sebastian's unwitting seed money, Maya had constructed her first rudimentary energy storage prototype. The following morning, while Marcus helped the triplets practice walking, a chaotic process with 3 toddlers heading in different directions, Maya returned to the garage laboratory. The prototype sat on her workbench, a collection of modified battery cells connected to a small solar panel. According to her calculations, her design improvements should allow for 15% greater storage efficiency than commercial models. Maya connected the testing apparatus, checked all safety measures twice, and activated the system. For several hours, the solar panel collected energy from the light streaming through the garage windows. The true test would come when she disconnected the panel and measured how efficiently her battery system retained and discharged the stored power. As afternoon approached, Maya carefully disconnected the panel and attached a small LED bulb to the battery system. She held her breath as she flipped the switch. The bulb flickered once, then glowed steadily, brighter than it had in previous tests. Grabbing her multimeter, Maya took readings, her hands shaking slightly. 22%, she whispered in disbelief. Not 15, 22% improvement. She rechecked her measurements 3 times before allowing herself to believe the results. Her modifications had exceeded her theoretical predictions. With proper development, this technology could transform solar energy storage. That evening, Maya and Marcus celebrated with grape juice in plastic cups, clinking them together while the triplets mimicked the gesture with their sippy cups. To the future CEO of Williams Energy, Marcus toasted. Williams? Maya asked, surprised. Well, Johnson Williams is a bit long for corporate letterhead, he replied with a small smile. Besides, these 3 are already using Williams as their last name at daycare. Maya felt warmth spread through her chest that had nothing to do with the grape juice. Over the past months, her feelings for Marcus had evolved in unexpected ways. His quiet strength, unassuming kindness, and unwavering support contrasted sharply with Sebastian's flash and superficiality. Where Sebastian had seen her as an exotic accessory, Marcus saw her, truly saw her, as a complete person worthy of respect and partnership. The following week brought unexpected news. Maya's submission to a university innovation competition, a paper outlining her improved battery storage technology, had won a $5,000 prize. "We did it!" she exclaimed, bursting into the living room where Marcus was reading to the boys. The committee said my approach was refreshingly practical with significant commercial potential. "I told you," Marcus said, his normally reserved expression breaking into a wide smile. "What's the next step?" "Patent application," Maya replied without hesitation, and then official business registration. The patent office waiting room was a study in contrasts. Most applicants arrived in expensive suits with teams of lawyers. Maya sat in her one professional outfit, a navy blazer from a consignment shop and slacks she'd mended twice, surrounded by 3 identical toddlers in carefully color-coded shirts, Adam in blue, Alexander in green, Anthony in red. "Mrs. Williams?" the clerk called, looking confused when Maya stood up gathering the triplets. "Ms. Johnson," she corrected gently, "but we're all coming together." The patent clerk, initially annoyed at the presence of toddlers, became increasingly interested as Maya walked him through her design. "This cross-connection approach is quite innovative," he admitted, examining her diagrams. "And you developed this while raising triplets?" "They were excellent supervisors," Maya replied, as Anthony solemnly offered the man a half-eaten cracker. With the preliminary patent application filed, Maya took her biggest step yet. Using a combination of the prize money and Sebastian's original $10,000, she officially registered Williams Energy as a limited liability company. Marcus stared at the simple logo Maya had designed, a stylized sun with 3 rays forming a W. "You used my name," he said quietly. "Is that okay?" Maya asked, suddenly uncertain. "I can change it if—" "It's perfect," he interrupted, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm honored." The triplets, now competent walkers with boundless energy, took particular delight in coloring copies of the logo with crayons, creating dozens of multi-hued variations that Maya proudly displayed on the refrigerator. As spring bloomed in Chicago, Marcus began acting strangely, checking his phone more frequently, disappearing on mysterious errands, and having hushed conversations that stopped when Maya entered the room. After 2 years of complete transparency between them, this sudden secretiveness was unsettling. "Is everything okay?" Maya finally asked one evening after the boys were asleep. "You seem distant lately." Marcus looked genuinely surprised. "Distant? No, not at all, just planning something." Before Maya could press further, he changed the subject to Alexander's latest achievement, figuring out how to unscrew his sippy cup to examine its mechanism. The mystery was solved the following Sunday. Marcus suggested a picnic at the small park near their apartment, a rare treat with 3 active toddlers. Maya packed sandwiches and snacks while Marcus loaded the stroller with supplies for what seemed like an Arctic expedition rather than an afternoon outing. The day was perfect. Warm sunshine, gentle breeze, and a relatively empty playground where the triplets could toddle without colliding with bigger children. After lunch, the boys discovered the joy of rolling down a gentle grassy slope, their identical laughs creating a chorus that drew smiles from everyone nearby. Maya leaned back on the picnic blanket, watching Marcus help Anthony back up the hill for another roll. These moments of simple happiness had once seemed impossible in the dark days after Sebastian's rejection. "Beautiful day," Marcus commented, settling beside her while the boys continued their new favorite activity. "Perfect," Maya agreed, closing her eyes briefly against the sunlight. When she opened them, Marcus was holding a small velvet box, his expression a mix of hope and nervousness that made him look younger than his 52 years. "This isn't what you think," he began awkwardly, then grimaced. "Or maybe it is. I'm not doing this well." Maya's heart raced as he opened the box, revealing a simple band of white gold. "I'm not trying to replace anyone or rush you into anything," Marcus continued, "but these past 2 years, watching you with the boys, seeing your determination, your brilliance, your heart, I've fallen in love with all 4 of you." Maya's eyes filled with tears as he continued. "I'd be honored to be their legal father if you'd let me. And your partner in everything, life, parenting, this amazing company you're building. We work well together, Maya. We always have." Before Maya could respond, 3 little tornadoes crashed into them, sensing an important moment was occurring. Adam examined the ring with scientific curiosity. Alexander immediately tried to grab it, and Anthony threw his arms around Marcus's neck. "What do you think, guys?" Maya asked, her voice trembling slightly. "Should Marcus officially become your dad?" "Dad!" Anthony declared immediately, having recently mastered the word. His brothers echoed him enthusiastically, though Maya suspected they were more interested in the excitement than understanding the question. Looking at Marcus, this man who had offered shelter when she had nothing, who had held her hand through premature labor, who had never once made her feel like a burden, Maya felt certainty settle in her heart. "Yes," she said simply, "to all of it." As Marcus slipped the ring onto her finger, the triplets created a group hug that nearly toppled all 5 of them onto the picnic blanket. Laughing, Maya realized that happiness could arrive in packages never anticipated, not in grand gestures or luxury penthouses, but in the steady warmth of genuine partnership. A week later, Maya sat across from a small local investor, explaining her technology with the confidence of someone who knew her product's value. After Stanford's rejection and Sebastian's abandonment, she had rebuilt not just her life but her self-belief. "So this storage method is really 20% more efficient?" the investor questioned, reviewing her prototype data. 22% in controlled tests, Maya corrected, with potential for greater efficiency at scale. After an hour of technical questions, the investor, a retired engineer who had made his fortune in manufacturing, wrote a check for $50,000 in exchange for a modest equity stake in Williams Energy. That evening, Maya and Marcus stared at the check in disbelief, the triplets playing with blocks on the living room floor beside them. "This is just the beginning," Maya whispered, squeezing Marcus's hand. While signing her first investment contract with trembling hands, Maya didn't know that this small step would be the start of a meteoric rise that would one day bring Sebastian Reed to his knees before the empire he had rejected before it was even born. "Mommy! Mommy! Look at me!" 3 identical voices called out from different points on the playground as Maya watched her 5-year-old sons navigate the jungle gym with increasing confidence. Adam had reached the highest platform and was waving proudly. Alexander was examining the pulley mechanism of a small bucket elevator with intense focus, and Anthony was organizing a game with 2 other children, his natural charisma already evident. "I see you, sweethearts," Maya called back, sharing a smile with Marcus, who sat beside her on the park bench. The crisp autumn morning marked a significant milestone. The triplets' first day of kindergarten would begin in less than an hour. "Nervous?" Marcus asked, gently squeezing her hand. "Terrified," Maya admitted, "but excited for them. They're more than ready." The past 3 years had transformed their lives in ways Maya could scarcely have imagined that night in her motel room, alone and pregnant. The Williams Energy prototype had evolved from a garage experiment into a legitimate business with 10 employees working from a small rented office space. Marcus had left his custodial position to become the company's operations manager, his practical experience proving invaluable as they navigated the early stages of business development. An hour later, Maya and Marcus stood outside the elementary school classroom watching the triplets hang their identical backpacks on hooks labeled with their names. Each boy wore a different colored shirt, their long-standing system for helping others tell them apart, but they had insisted on matching superhero backpacks. "They'll be fine," the kindergarten teacher assured them, noting Maya's anxious expression. "We've had twins before, but triplets will be a fun new adventure." Maya nodded, fighting the urge to rush in and gather her sons for one more hug. These were the same boys who had survived a premature birth, who had thrived despite the odds stacked against them. They would conquer kindergarten just as they had every other challenge. 2 weeks after the school milestone came another significant event. Maya sat beside Marcus in the family court, her heart racing as the judge reviewed their paperwork. The triplets, dressed in their first suits, tiny button-ups and clip-on ties, fidgeted in the row behind them, supervised by Marcus's sister Janelle. "All documentation appears to be in order," the judge announced, looking up from the adoption papers. "Mr. Williams, you understand that this adoption establishes you as the legal father of Adam, Alexander, and Anthony Johnson, with all rights and responsibilities thereof?" "I do, Your Honor," Marcus replied, his normally steady voice thick with emotion. "I've been their father in every way that matters since they were born. This just makes it official." The judge smiled, turning her attention to Maya. "And Ms. Johnson, you consent to this adoption freely and without reservation?" "Absolutely," Maya confirmed. "These boys couldn't ask for a better father." As the judge signed the final papers and officially declared Marcus the legal father of the triplets, tears streamed down his face. Maya had never seen him cry before, not during midnight feedings, not through toddler tantrums, not even when discussing his late wife. But now, as he knelt to embrace the 3 boys who were legally his sons, Marcus wept openly. "Dad!" Anthony exclaimed, throwing his arms around Marcus's neck. Adam and Alexander quickly joined the embrace, the word "dad" flowing naturally from their lips, a term they'd begun using months ago without prompting. That evening, after a celebration dinner at the boys' favorite pizza restaurant, Maya found Marcus sitting on the back steps of their apartment building, gazing at the stars. "Thank you," he said simply as she sat beside him. "For what?" "I should be thanking you," Maya replied, leaning against his shoulder. "For letting me be their father. For giving me a second chance at family when I thought that part of my life was over. Maya took his hand. Their wedding bands, simple gold circles exchanged in a small ceremony 6 months earlier, catching the moonlight. We gave each other second chances. That's what partners do. The Williams Energy office hummed with activity as Maya walked through the main workspace, nodding to her small but dedicated team. What had begun as a concept sketched at Marcus's kitchen table now occupied a modest office suite, with diagrams and prototypes covering the walls. Their improved battery storage system had attracted attention from several small solar installation companies looking for more efficient components. "The Miller proposal is ready for your review," called Diane, their recently hired office manager, and Dr. Rodriguez from the Renewable Energy Department at Northwestern called again about your presentation next month. Maya nodded, juggling her coffee and a stack of technical journals as she headed to her office, a small room with glass walls that allowed her to keep an eye on operations while working. Unlike the lavish executive suites she'd once cleaned, her office was practical and modest, its only luxury being a frame containing 3 kindergarten handprints in different colors. The afternoon brought both triumph and challenge. A potential client who had seemed enthusiastic about their storage solution backed out at the last minute. "They went with SolarTech instead," Diane explained apologetically. "Their sales rep offered a significant discount." Maya felt the familiar sting of rejection, but it no longer devastated her as it once had. SolarTech's batteries degrade twice as fast as ours. They'll regret that decision in 18 months when they need replacements. Later that evening, Maya arrived home to find Marcus and the triplets huddled around the kitchen table, working intently on what appeared to be a science project. "We're building solar cars," Alexander explained excitedly, holding up a small vehicle with a tiny panel affixed to its roof. "Alex figured out how to connect the motor," Marcus added proudly. "Adam calculated the optimal angle for the panel, and Anthony designed the body." Maya watched her sons collaborate, each contributing their unique strengths to the project. At 5, their individual personalities and talents had become increasingly distinct. Adam's analytical mind approached problems with methodical precision. Alexander's technical intuition allowed him to understand mechanical relationships intuitively. Anthony's social intelligence and creativity rounded out the trio, making them a formidable team even in kindergarten. 3 days later, Maya's phone rang as she was reviewing quarterly projections. The local number wasn't familiar, but she answered anyway, expecting perhaps another small business inquiry. "Is this Maya Williams?" asked a woman's voice. "Johnson," Maya corrected automatically, though she'd been considering legally changing her name to match her husband and sons. "Maya Johnson. This is Elaine Peters from the Chicago Business Journal. We're doing a feature on emerging clean energy companies, and your name came up repeatedly in my research." Maya nearly dropped the phone. The Chicago Business Journal was a respected regional publication that often identified rising stars in various industries. The resulting article, titled "The Mother Entrepreneur Revolutionizing Solar Energy," appeared in the following month's issue. The half-page feature included a photo of Maya standing confidently beside her latest prototype, with a smaller inset showing her with Marcus and the triplets. The morning the magazine hit newsstands, Maya's phone began ringing incessantly. Former colleagues from Stanford, local business owners, and most significantly, 3 different venture capital firms requested meetings to discuss potential investment. "This is it," Marcus said that evening, the magazine open on their kitchen table. "The breakthrough we've been waiting for." 2 weeks later, Maya sat across from Jonathan Brenner, a partner at Elevation Capital, one of Chicago's most respected venture firms. Unlike the small local investor who had provided their initial funding, Brenner represented serious money and serious expectations. "Your technology is impressive," he acknowledged, reviewing the test data. 25% greater efficiency, longer lifespan, and more stable performance in extreme temperatures. We'd like to offer $2 million for 30% equity." Maya had anticipated this offer and prepared her response carefully. "I appreciate your interest, Mr. Brenner, but Williams Energy isn't just another acquisition target. We're building something for the long term. I'd consider 1.5 million for 15%, maintaining our management autonomy. Brenner's eyebrows rose. He clearly wasn't accustomed to counteroffers from small startups, particularly those led by women. That's quite a premium valuation you're putting on your company, Ms. Johnson. It's the appropriate valuation based on our proprietary technology and growth potential, Maya replied calmly. In 18 months, that 15% will be worth considerably more. After a tense negotiation that extended through 3 meetings, Brenner finally agreed to Maya's terms. That night, she and Marcus celebrated with a simple dinner at home after the triplets were asleep, too stunned by their success to consider going out. $1.5 million, Marcus repeated, shaking his head in disbelief. What happens next? We scale, Maya said decisively. Hire engineers, lease proper manufacturing space, develop the commercial prototype, and start marketing aggressively to installers and builders. The following months passed in a whirlwind of growth. Williams Energy moved into a proper facility, a renovated warehouse with adequate space for both offices and prototype manufacturing. Maya hired 3 experienced engineers, 2 sales representatives, and additional support staff. Marcus, now officially the company's chief operations officer, oversaw the practical aspects of expansion while Maya focused on technology refinement and business development. The triplets, now halfway through kindergarten, adapted to their mother's busier schedule with the resilience children often display. Maya remained fiercely protective of family time, scheduling important meetings during school hours whenever possible and maintaining their tradition of science experiments in the kitchen on weekends. One evening, as Maya demonstrated basic circuit principles using lemons and copper wire, Adam looked up with his serious expression. "Mommy, Ms. Harlow says I'm really good at math. Better than 5th graders," he reported matter-of-factly. "That's wonderful, sweetheart," Maya replied, unsurprised. Adam had been doing multiplication since age 4. "And Alex fixed the classroom clock today," Anthony added, always ready to highlight his brother's achievements. The teacher couldn't believe it. Alexander shrugged modestly. It was just the battery connection. Anyone could see it was loose. Maya exchanged a proud glance with Marcus. Their son's exceptional abilities were becoming increasingly apparent to others, not just proud parents. As spring arrived, Williams Energy secured its first major contract, providing storage systems for a municipal solar installation in a Chicago suburb. Standing at the contract signing ceremony, Maya surveyed the room filled with engineers, officials, and her growing team. 7 years ago, she had been cleaning offices overnight while pregnant with triplets. Now she was a CEO, inventor, and respected business leader. Outside the new Williams Energy headquarters, Maya paused to take in the modest but impressive building with its rooftop solar array and the company logo displayed prominently by the entrance. Marcus joined her, slipping his hand into hers. "This is just the beginning," she said softly, gazing at what they'd built together. That moment of modest celebration, with Marcus by her side and their sons thriving, marked a turning point Maya couldn't fully appreciate yet. In just 7 years, she would be inaugurating a corporate campus larger than Reed Petroleum's headquarters, while Sebastian faced the first of many public crises that would eventually bring him to his knees. 4 years later, the Williams Energy headquarters buzzed with the controlled chaos of success. Maya stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of her executive office, watching employees cross the campus courtyard below. The company that had started in Marcus's garage now occupied a modern 3-building complex in Chicago's emerging tech corridor and employed over 200 people. "Mom, did you see the latest test results?" 9-year-old Adam burst through the door, followed closely by his brothers. All 3 boys wore the visitor badges required by company security, though every employee knew exactly who they were. Maya turned from the window, smiling at her sons. Despite their identical appearances, the same raven hair and startling blue-gray eyes, their personalities had developed into distinct forces. Adam clutched a tablet displaying complex energy efficiency graphs. Alexander carried a partially disassembled solar panel prototype, while Anthony arrived with a carefully prepared presentation folder. "School let out early for teacher conferences," Marcus explained, appearing in the doorway behind them. At 56, the silver at his temples had spread throughout his hair, giving him a distinguished appearance that suited his role as CFO of a $50 million company. Maya checked her watch. "Perfect timing. I have 20 minutes before the conference call with Boulder County representatives." She knelt to examine Adam's calculations, admiring the elegant mathematical solutions he'd developed for optimizing energy distribution, advanced work that would challenge most college students. "Look what I found in the development lab," Alexander said, holding up the modified solar panel. "The connection junction is inefficient. I sketched an alternative design." He produced a remarkably sophisticated technical drawing that made Maya exchange a proud glance with Marcus. Not to be outdone, Anthony opened his folder. "I prepared our presentation for the school science fair. Our theme is making solar energy accessible for everyone." His natural gift for communication had translated into an ability to explain complex concepts in approachable ways, a skill Maya increasingly valued as Williams' energy grew. Later that evening, after the boys had gone to bed, Maya sat at the kitchen island in their modest suburban home, reviewing preparation materials for an upcoming television appearance. Williams Energy had secured contracts with 3 municipalities to provide energy storage systems for their public buildings, attracting national attention to their innovative approach. "Nervous?" Marcus asked, sliding a cup of tea toward her. "A bit," Maya admitted. "It's my first national broadcast. The producer said they're also interviewing Sebastian Reed later in the week for a segment on traditional energy companies." Marcus's expression tightened slightly at the mention of Sebastian's name. Though Maya had built her success entirely separate from her past with Sebastian, his shadow occasionally fell across their path as a competitor in the energy sector. "You'll outshine him," Marcus said simply, his confidence in her unwavering as always. The following Tuesday, Maya sat in the makeup chair at the Chicago studio of National Morning, the show's logo illuminated on the wall behind her. The makeup artist applied finishing touches while a producer briefed her on the segment format. "We'll focus on Williams Energy's municipal contracts and your innovative storage technology," the young woman explained. 5 minutes, 3 main talking points, then we'll take 1 viewer question from social media." Maya nodded, mentally reviewing her key messages. In the monitor across the room, she could see the hosts introducing the day's segments. The stakes felt enormously high, not just for business growth but as vindication of the path she'd chosen. Somewhere in Texas, Sebastian might be watching, though she doubted he'd recognize the confident CEO as the pregnant scholarship student he'd discarded. "And we're back with today's special segment on America's energy future," announced the host moments later as cameras focused on Maya. "Joining us is Maya Williams, founder and CEO of Williams Energy, whose revolutionary storage technology is changing how municipalities approach solar power. Welcome, Maya." The interview flowed smoothly as Maya explained complex energy concepts in accessible terms, a skill she'd practiced extensively with Anthony as her test audience. When asked about competing with established energy companies, she responded with measured confidence. "Traditional energy companies serve an important role in our current infrastructure," she acknowledged diplomatically. "But the future demands more sustainable approaches. At Williams Energy, we're not just selling technology. We're offering a practical transition path to renewable energy that makes financial sense for communities." After the segment, Maya's phone flooded with congratulatory messages from employees and industry contacts. The company's social media account saw an immediate surge in followers, and 3 potential clients requested meetings. That evening, the family gathered in the living room to watch the recorded interview together. The triplets cheered at each of Maya's responses, offering enthusiastic high fives. "You were amazing, Mom," Anthony declared with expert assessment of her presentation skills. As the segment ended, the host transitioned. Tomorrow we'll hear the other side of the energy debate when Reed Petroleum CEO Sebastian Reed joins us to discuss his company's approach to America's energy needs in a changing climate. Maya felt a strange jolt at seeing Sebastian's name on screen. Though she'd known he would be interviewed, the reality of it struck her differently. The triplets, absorbed in their own excitement, didn't notice the brief mention of a name that had once changed the course of Maya's life. The following afternoon, Maya found herself unexpectedly working from home due to a water main break near the office. While reviewing contract proposals at the dining room table, she heard Sebastian's voice emanating from the living room television. "Mom, this guy looks like us," Adam called out, his analytical mind immediately identifying the genetic similarities that had escaped his notice in previous glimpses of business news. Maya froze, her heart racing as she walked slowly to the living room where all three boys sat watching Sebastian Reed defend controversial drilling practices. On screen, Sebastian looked older than she remembered, more lines around his eyes, a certain hardness to his features. But the resemblance between him and the triplets was undeniable. The same blue-gray eyes, the same angle of jaw, even similar gestures as he spoke. "Why does he look like us?" Alexander asked, his engineer's mind already working on the problem. Maya sat down heavily on the couch, knowing this moment would eventually come but feeling unprepared nonetheless. She'd always planned to tell them about their biological father when they were older, but fate had forced her hand. "That's Sebastian Reed," she said carefully. "He's the CEO of Reed Petroleum, one of the largest oil companies in Texas. But why does he look like us?" Anthony persisted, always the most socially perceptive of the three. Maya took a deep breath. "Because he's your biological father." The silence that followed felt endless. Adam's brow furrowed in calculation. Alexander stared intently at the screen as if memorizing Sebastian's features, and Anthony looked directly at Maya, his eyes seeking the complete story. "Where has he been all this time?" Adam finally asked, his logical mind requiring concrete information. "Before you were born," Maya began carefully, "Sebastian and I were engaged. When I told him I was pregnant, he wasn't ready to be a father. He made choices that showed he didn't want to be part of our lives." "So he left us?" Anthony's voice cracked slightly. "Yes," Maya confirmed gently. "But then I found Marcus, who chose to love you and become your real father. Biology makes someone a genetic parent, but love and presence make someone a true father." The conversation continued well into the evening after Marcus returned home. Together they answered questions with age-appropriate honesty, emphasizing that Sebastian's rejection reflected his character flaws, not the boy's worth. When asked if they would ever meet him, Maya and Marcus exchanged glances. "That would be your choice when you're older," Marcus said carefully, "but whatever you decide, we'll support you." That night, after the triplets finally fell asleep, Maya found Marcus sitting on their back porch, staring at the stars. "They took it better than I expected," she said, joining him. "They're remarkable kids," Marcus replied, "and they have a remarkable mother who's shown them that rejection doesn't define you." The following week brought startling news that shifted Maya's attention from personal revelations to business triumph. Williams Energy received notification that they had won a government contract for energy storage systems previously expected to go to a subsidiary of Reed Petroleum. "They chose our bid over Reed's," Maya confirmed to her management team, still somewhat shocked by the development. "This is our first direct competition with them, and we won." The industry newsletter Energy Weekly published a comparative analysis of the two companies' proposals, with the headline, "Newcomer Takes Contract from Industry Giant." The article highlighted Williams Energy's superior technology and cost-effectiveness compared to Reed Petroleum's outdated approach relying on name recognition. For Maya, the victory carried symbolic weight beyond its considerable financial value. 9 years after Sebastian had cruelly dismissed her and their unborn children as worthless complications, she had built something that directly challenged his family legacy. That evening, as Maya tucked the boys into bed, Anthony asked, "Are you happy you won against Mr. Reed's company, Mom?" Maya considered her answer carefully. "I'm proud of our company's achievement because we won based on having better technology and ideas. It's not about beating any specific person. It's about proving that the better solution deserves to succeed." Later that night, Maya scrolled through her email, pausing at a message from a former Stanford classmate now working at Reed Petroleum. "Thought you'd find this interesting," the message read. Reed mentioned Williams Energy 3 times during today's board meeting, asking for competitive analysis. "The old guard is finally noticing you." Maya smiled slightly, forwarding the message to Marcus. While she had never built her company with vengeance as the primary motivation, there was undeniable satisfaction in knowing Sebastian had begun to feel the competitive pressure from the very woman and children he had discarded. As she closed her laptop, Maya reflected on the journey from that devastating night in Manhattan to her current reality. The pain of Sebastian's rejection had transformed into the foundation for something far more valuable than his acceptance could ever have been. Williams Energy wasn't just a successful company, it was living proof that what others reject sometimes contains the greatest potential. While Maya would celebrate this modest victory quietly, she didn't know that Sebastian was beginning to notice the name Williams Energy with increasing frequency and discomfort in board meetings, the first tremors of a seismic shift that would eventually shake his world to its core. Sebastian's mention of Williams Energy in board meetings was only the first ripple of what would become a tsunami. 3 years had passed, and that ripple had grown into a wave transforming the energy sector landscape. Maya stood at the window of her expansive office, gazing at the Williams Energy campus that now sprawled across 3 acres of prime Chicago real estate. The company valuation had reached $500 million, with investors clamoring for a piece of what energy analysts called the most disruptive clean technology of the decade. "The conference materials are finalized," announced Diane, now Maya's executive assistant, placing a sleek folder on the glass desk. "And Dr. Himura confirmed he'll introduce you at the keynote." Maya nodded, running her fingers over the embossed invitation to the World Sustainable Energy Conference in Chicago. After years of being an industry outsider, she had been selected as the keynote speaker, replacing Sebastian Reed, who had held that position for the previous 5 years. "How are the boys doing with their science project?" Diane asked, her fondness for the triplets evident. "Extraordinary, as usual," Maya smiled. "They've created a working model of a smart grid that could power a small neighborhood. Their teacher didn't quite know what to make of it." At 12, the triplets had developed into remarkable young men, each cultivating his unique talents while maintaining the seamless teamwork that made them extraordinary together. Adam's mathematical mind could solve complex optimization problems that challenged university professors. Alexander could build or repair virtually anything mechanical, his hands seeming to understand devices intuitively. Anthony's emotional intelligence and communication skills had blossomed, making him a natural leader among his peers. That evening, Maya watched them huddled around their robotics project in the family room of their larger but still modest home. Though Williams Energy's success had brought financial comfort, Maya and Marcus maintained the practical values that had sustained them through harder times. "The response time needs to be faster," Adam was saying, analyzing data on his tablet. "If we reconfigure the servo like this," Alexander suggested, already reaching for a screwdriver. "We should emphasize the environmental benefits in our presentation," Anthony added, jotting notes. "The judges respond to sustainability messaging." Maya exchanged a proud glance with Marcus, who was reviewing quarterly projections at the dining table. Their coordinated talents, even at 12, reminded her of the perfect synergy she and Marcus had developed in building Williams Energy. "Are you ready for the conference?" Marcus asked later that night as they prepared for bed. "Sebastian will be there." Maya paused, considering. "I've been too busy to think about it," she admitted. But yes, I suppose our paths might cross backstage. Will you be okay? Marcus's concern was evident. It's been 12 years, Maya replied. He's just another energy executive now, one whose company is steadily losing market share to ours. The World Sustainable Energy Conference transformed Chicago's Lakefront Convention Center into a showcase of innovation. Maya arrived early, wanting to familiarize herself with the stage before her presentation. Her navy blue suit, custom-tailored Italian wool, a far cry from the second-hand clothes of her struggling days, projected the quiet confidence that had become her trademark in the industry. As she reviewed her notes in the speaker's lounge, Maya heard a familiar voice in the corridor outside. The rich, cultured tones still carried the slight Texas drawl she once found charming. Sebastian Reed was speaking to someone about conventional energy's continued relevance despite trendy green initiatives. Maya's heart quickened despite herself. She had seen Sebastian in business publications and occasional television appearances over the years, but they hadn't been in the same physical space since that devastating night in Manhattan 12 years ago. Taking a deep breath, she continued reviewing her presentation, determined not to let his proximity affect her composure. The door opened, and Sebastian entered mid-conversation with a conference organizer. He had aged. His once golden hair now showed threads of silver at the temples, and fine lines mapped his face, but he still carried himself with the entitled confidence of old money. "The panel moderator should direct the technical questions to my team," he was saying, not noticing Maya initially. When his eyes finally registered her presence, he stopped mid-sentence, recognition dawning slowly. For a brief moment, Maya saw confusion in his expression. This poised, elegant woman bore little resemblance to the devastated pregnant student he had discarded. Then understanding flickered in his eyes, followed by something that might have been discomfort. "Maya," he said, her name sounding strange on his lips after so many years. "I didn't realize you were presenting." "Keynote speaker," the organizer clarified, oblivious to the tension. "Ms. Williams's innovation in energy storage has revolutionized municipal solar implementation. We're honored to have her." Sebastian's expression tightened almost imperceptibly. "Williams? My married name," Maya replied, her voice professionally neutral as she gathered her materials. "If you'll excuse me, I need to check the presentation system." As she walked past Sebastian, head high and stride confident, Maya felt a complex mixture of emotions, not the devastating pain she might once have expected, but something more akin to detached observation. This man had once held the power to destroy her world. Now, he was merely another competitor in an industry she was helping to transform. The conference hall filled to capacity for Maya's keynote. From the stage, she could see Sebastian seated in the front row, his expression carefully neutral as Dr. Himura introduced her with glowing praise. "Williams Energy has accomplished what many industry giants claimed was impossible," Maya began, her voice strong and clear. "Our advanced storage technology has made renewable energy not just environmentally superior, but economically competitive with fossil fuels." For 40 minutes, Maya presented the technological and financial case for renewable energy transition, her command of both technical and business aspects drawing appreciative murmurs from the audience. When she unveiled Williams Energy's newest innovation, a storage system that improved efficiency by another 30%, applause erupted. "This technology makes systems like those used by Reed Petroleum partially obsolete," she stated matter-of-factly, not looking directly at Sebastian but aware of his stiffening posture. "The data is clear. Companies that cling to outdated energy models are not just harming the environment, they're making poor business decisions." As Maya concluded to a standing ovation, she noticed Sebastian remained seated, his expression darkening as colleagues around him rose to applaud. The power dynamic that had once allowed him to dismiss her with cruel words had completely inverted. Now, in this room full of industry leaders, Maya Williams was the authority, and Sebastian Reed was increasingly irrelevant. The press conference following her presentation attracted major business publications and energy sector journalists. Maya fielded questions with practiced ease, her responses thoughtful and substantive. "Ms. Williams, how does Williams Energy plan to compete with established energy giants that have dominated the market for decades?" asked a reporter from the Wall Street Journal. Maya smiled confidently. "We're not competing with the past. We're building the future. Companies that recognize the inevitable transition to renewable energy will thrive. Those that resist will become increasingly marginalized." From the corner of her eye, Maya saw Sebastian attempting to exit discreetly. Several journalists who once would have clamored for his comments now focused entirely on her. The man who had once called her a scholarship charity case was now being ignored in favor of her expertise. That evening, Maya video called home, where the triplets were finishing homework under Marcus's supervision. "You were amazing, Mom," Anthony exclaimed, having watched the live stream. Everyone at school was talking about it. "The efficiency ratings on the new system are incredible," Adam added, clearly having analyzed the technical specifications. "Can we see the prototype when you get back?" Alexander asked eagerly. As Maya answered their questions, she marveled at these three extraordinary boys, so intelligent, so kind, so completely unaware that their biological father had been sitting in the front row, watching the woman he had rejected demonstrate her intellectual and business superiority. Later that night, as industry leaders mingled at a reception, Maya overheard snippets of conversation about Reed Petroleum's falling stock prices and Sebastian's recent divorce, his third, apparently. She felt no satisfaction in his personal troubles, only a sense of vindication that her vision, which he had once dismissed, was now reshaping the very industry his family had dominated for generations. "Maya Williams?" A distinguished woman in her 60s approached. "I'm Catherine Blackwell, lead investor at Horizon Ventures. Your presentation today was exceptional. We should discuss potential expansion opportunities for Williams Energy." As Maya engaged in conversation with the prominent investor, she noticed Sebastian watching from across the room, nursing a whiskey with a grim expression. Their eyes met briefly, hers confident and clear, his troubled and uncertain, before he turned away. The following morning, Maya received a text from Marcus. "Breaking news. Reed Petroleum stock down 12% after yesterday's conference. Williams Energy mentioned as primary industry disruptor." Maya placed her phone down thoughtfully. Success had never been about revenge for her. It was about creating something meaningful, providing for her sons, and building a more sustainable future. Yet there was undeniable poetic justice in watching Sebastian's empire crumble as hers ascended. On the flight home, Maya reviewed coverage of the conference. Business Insider had published an article titled, "Williams Energy, the David toppling Goliath in America's Energy Revolution," featuring side-by-side photos of her and Sebastian, with graphs showing their companies' inversely related stock performances. As the plane descended toward Chicago, Maya thought about the triplets waiting at home, the three remarkable boys who carried Sebastian's DNA but Marcus's values. They remained unaware that the father whose existence they had only recently learned about had been in the same room as their mother, witnessing the empire she had built from the ashes of his rejection. While Maya celebrated her conference triumph with a quiet family dinner, she couldn't know that Sebastian had returned to his empty penthouse with a nagging suspicion about the age and appearance of the three young men featured in Williams Energy's corporate video, a suspicion that would grow into certainty when he noticed their unmistakable Reed eyes staring back at him from a Forbes Next Generation Leaders feature 6 months later. Sebastian stared at the magazine spread on his mahogany desk, his whiskey glass frozen halfway to his lips. The Forbes Next Generation Leaders feature showcased 3 14-year-old boys with identical faces that mirrored his own at that age with unsettling precision. Those eyes, his family's distinctive blue-gray eyes, so unusual they had been traced through the Reed lineage for 5 generations. He had dismissed his initial suspicion 6 months ago at the energy conference as paranoia, but this full-page photograph eliminated all doubt. Adam, Alexander, and Anthony Williams, the caption read, the remarkable triplets whose innovations in renewable energy algorithms, mechanical design, and social impact initiatives are already reshaping the industry pioneered by their mother, Maya Williams, CEO of Williams Energy. Sebastian set down his glass with an unsteady hand. The ages aligned perfectly. 14 years since he had last seen Maya, since he had transferred $10,000 with that dismissive note for the abortion. A cold realization washed over him. She hadn't terminated the pregnancy. She had given birth to his sons, 3 brilliant boys who were now contributing to the company systematically dismantling Reed Petroleum's market dominance. Mr. Reed, his assistant's voice interrupted through the intercom. The board is waiting in the conference room. Sebastian straightened his tie, tucking the magazine into his desk drawer. The quarterly board meeting would not wait, even for this earth-shattering discovery. He composed his features into the mask of confidence he had perfected since childhood, though internally, his world had just shifted on its axis. In the glass-walled conference room, Sebastian faced increasingly concerned board members as he presented Reed Petroleum's latest projections. The company now valued at just under $2 billion, a significant drop from its peak 5 years earlier. Our market share continues to face pressure from renewable alternatives, he acknowledged, the words bitter on his tongue, particularly in municipal contracts where Williams Energy has established dominance. Perhaps it's time to consider diversification into renewable sectors ourselves, suggested Patricia Winters, the newest board member. Williams Energy has proven the economic viability of their model. Sebastian felt a surge of irrational anger. Williams Energy is overvalued and overexposed. Their technology will hit limitations that petroleum won't face for decades. The skeptical expressions around the table told him his argument lacked conviction. As the meeting adjourned, Sebastian returned to his office and made a call he had been contemplating since seeing the magazine. Blackwell Investigations, answered a discreet voice. This is Sebastian Reed. I need comprehensive information on Maya Williams, CEO of Williams Energy. Background, current situation, family details, everything. 2 weeks later, a leather portfolio appeared on Sebastian's desk containing a meticulously detailed report. Maya Johnson, now Maya Williams, had married Marcus Williams 12 years ago. The triplets, born 7 weeks premature, had been legally adopted by Marcus shortly after the marriage. Williams Energy was preparing for an initial public offering expected to value the company at $2 billion. The most damning section came last. DNA probability analysis based on publicly available images placed the likelihood of Sebastian being the triplets' biological father at over 99%. The investigator had also uncovered Maya's original pregnancy timeline and early employment history, cleaning offices and waiting tables while pregnant with triplets. Sebastian closed the folder, a complex mixture of emotions churning within him. He had assumed Maya would take the money and quietly eliminate what he had callously termed an inconvenience. Instead, she had endured poverty and hardship to raise his sons who had inherited the Reed brilliance and were now directing it against everything his family had built. Months passed as Sebastian obsessively followed news about Williams Energy's impending IPO. The business press praised Maya's leadership and innovation, with multiple profiles highlighting her journey from single mother of triplets to energy sector revolutionary. Each article twisted the knife deeper, though none mentioned the identity of the children's biological father. Sebastian's personal assistant entered his office one morning, placing an envelope on his desk. Your invitation to the Metropolitan Gala arrived. This year's theme is Innovators Transforming the World. Sebastian nearly dismissed it. These society events had lost their appeal since his third divorce, until he noticed the sponsors list. The American Energy Association would be honoring Maya Williams as Entrepreneur of the Year at the same event. Confirm my attendance, he instructed, a plan forming in his mind. After 15 years, it was time to confront Maya about the sons she had kept from him, sons who should have been Reed heirs. At Williams Energy headquarters, Maya sat with her executive team reviewing final preparations for their stock market debut. The company had grown beyond her wildest expectations, with 400 employees and operations in 12 states. Their proprietary energy storage technology now powered 20% of the market once dominated by fossil fuel companies like Reed Petroleum. The Wall Street analysts' projections exceed our internal estimates, reported Diane, now chief of staff. Opening valuation could reach $2.2 billion. Maya nodded, still sometimes amazed by the empire that had grown from her desperate sketches at Marcus's kitchen table 14 years ago. And the timing works with the boys' spring break? I want them there when we ring the opening bell. All arranged, Marcus confirmed, though Alexander insists on bringing his latest prototype to demonstrate for potential investors. Maya laughed. Of course he does. I'm sure the New York Stock Exchange will appreciate a 14-year-old explaining how to improve their electrical systems. Later that evening, as Maya reviewed her acceptance speech for the upcoming Metropolitan Gala honor, Adam knocked on her home office door, his expression thoughtful. "Mom, I've been researching our family genetics," he began in his characteristically direct manner. "The dominant traits we inherited don't align with Dad's genetic background." Maya set down her papers, her heart quickening. Adam had always been the most analytical of the three, categorizing and questioning everything since he could speak. "You've been thinking about Sebastian Reed," she stated, not a question. "His facial structure, eye color, and even his gesture patterns match ours with statistically significant correlation," Adam continued. "Plus, the timing aligns with your Stanford period." Maya had always known this day would come, when her brilliant sons would piece together the puzzle of their genetics. "Yes, Sebastian is your biological father. We've never hidden that he exists, though we haven't discussed him much." "Will we meet him someday?" Adam asked, his expression neutral but his eyes intense. "That would be your choice when you're older," Maya replied carefully, "though I should mention that he's never sought contact with you in 14 years. Adam considered this information with the same methodical processing he applied to complex equations. Logical. His actions demonstrate his priorities clearly. With that surprisingly mature assessment, he nodded and left, undoubtedly to share his confirmed hypothesis with his brothers. 2 weeks later, the Williams family prepared for their trip to New York. The Metropolitan Gala invitation had arrived months ago, but recent developments had added significance to the event. The night before the gala would mark Williams Energy's final board meeting as a private company, with the IPO scheduled for the following week. "Do we really have to wear tuxedos?" Anthony groaned, adjusting his bow tie as Maya inspected all 3 boys in the hotel suite. "You look extraordinarily handsome," Maya assured him. "And yes, it's required for this event." The boys had insisted on different colored bow ties to help people tell them apart. Adam in blue, Alexander in green, and Anthony in red. Otherwise, in their identical tuxedos, they looked like carbon copies of each other, their Reed heritage unmistakable in their aristocratic features and striking eyes. Marcus emerged from the bedroom in his own tuxedo, silver hair perfectly styled, looking every bit the distinguished business leader he had become. "The car will be here in 30 minutes, he reminded them, checking his watch. "I still think we should have brought the miniature smart grid," Alexander muttered, referring to his latest invention that had won the national science competition the previous month. "The Metropolitan Museum of Art probably has rules about experimental electrical systems near priceless artifacts," Marcus teased, straightening Alexander's perpetually crooked tie. Maya watched her family with quiet pride. From cleaning office bathrooms at night while pregnant to this moment, preparing to accept a major industry award and take her company public, the journey seemed almost surreal. Yet every step had been earned through relentless work, unwavering determination, and the support of the man who had chosen to be her partner and the boy's father, when their biological father had rejected them all. The Metropolitan Gala transformed the museum's grand hall into a showcase of innovation and power. Maya stepped from the limousine onto the red carpet, camera flashes illuminating her emerald gown, the color deliberately chosen to represent Williams Energy's commitment to sustainability. Marcus followed, then the triplets, whose identical appearance caused an immediate stir among photographers. Inside, the elite of American business and society mingled beneath crystal chandeliers. Maya navigated the crowd with practiced ease, accepting congratulations and introducing her sons to key industry figures. The triplets, despite their youth, engaged confidently with CEOs and investors, each demonstrating the unique talents that made them extraordinary individually and unstoppable together. "Maya Williams," called a familiar voice from the American Energy Association. "The ceremony begins in 20 minutes. We'll need you backstage shortly." As Maya turned to respond, she caught sight of a figure across the room that made her breath catch momentarily. Sebastian Reed stood alone near the bar, watching her with an intensity that carried across the crowded space. 15 years had changed him. His once golden hair now showed prominent gray, lines of stress marked his face, and his posture carried a tension that hadn't existed in his privileged youth. Their eyes met briefly before Maya deliberately turned away, focusing on her family. She had spent too many years building something meaningful to allow Sebastian's presence to unsettle her now. "Ladies and gentlemen," announced the Master of Ceremonies moments later, "with great honor, we welcome Maya Williams, founder and CEO of Williams Energy Revolution, winner of the Entrepreneur of the Year Award." Applause echoed as Maya ascended the stage with graceful confidence. From the podium, she could see Sebastian standing rigid at the back of the hall, his expression unreadable in the dim lighting. 15 years ago, she began, her voice steady and clear, "I cleaned offices at night while studying online during the day with 3 newborn babies to feed. Today, Williams Energy employs more than 400 people, provides clean electricity to 3 million homes, and has just been valued at $2.2 billion. Each word struck Sebastian like a physical blow. The struggling pregnant student he had discarded had transformed into this commanding presence whose company now rivaled his family's legacy. "But my greatest achievement," Maya continued, a genuine smile warming her features, "isn't found in financial statements or technology patents. It's in the 3 extraordinary young men I have the honor of calling my sons." As if rehearsed, the triplets ascended the stage, each carrying an arrangement of sustainable flowers cultivated at one of the company's solar farms. Sebastian gripped his whiskey glass so tightly it nearly shattered in his hand as he stared at 3 teenage versions of himself standing proudly beside the woman he had once deemed worthless. Adam, who was just accepted into MIT's summer program at 14. Alexander, whose distribution algorithm is being implemented on 3 continents. And Anthony, who founded a non-profit organization bringing solar power to rural communities in Africa. The audience applauded enthusiastically as Maya continued her speech, acknowledging Marcus and their team. Sebastian barely heard the words, transfixed by the 3 boys, his sons, whose lives he had missed completely. The Reed genetic legacy, now bearing the Williams name and revolutionizing the world he had refused to change. As Maya concluded her acceptance speech, Sebastian moved purposefully toward the VIP corridor where she would exit. Years of planning and calculation had culminated in this moment of revelation, but Sebastian had no idea that the photograph he had discovered months earlier would lead to the most humiliating confrontation of his life. While cameras captured the moment of tension crystallized between them, Maya realized that the confrontation she had avoided for 15 years had finally arrived. But unlike in her old nightmares, now she was the one who held all the power. The morning after the Metropolitan Gala, Maya awakened to her phone buzzing incessantly on the nightstand of their hotel suite. Marcus was already up, standing by the window overlooking Central Park, his expression grave as he scrolled through his own device. "It's everywhere," he said quietly, turning the screen toward her. Maya sat up, her heart sinking as she saw the headline splashed across the Wall Street Journal's digital front page. Reed Petroleum Heir confronted by secret triplets at Metropolitan Gala. Beneath it, a photograph captured the moment perfectly. Sebastian's shocked face as he stood before Maya and the boys in the hallway, his hand reaching out as if to claim ownership while the triplets formed a protective barrier around their mother. "How bad?" Maya asked, quickly scanning through the notifications flooding her phone. "It's the top story on every business outlet," Marcus replied. The New York Times went with, "Williams Energy CEO reveals, I built my empire after being abandoned pregnant with triplets." Maya closed her eyes briefly. She had known this moment might come eventually, but the public explosion of their private history still felt overwhelming. Her phone rang. Diane, her chief of staff, already in crisis management mode. "The PR team has drafted statements for your approval," Diane reported efficiently. "Investment bankers assure us this won't impact the IPO. If anything, the human interest angle is creating more buzz. But we need to decide how to handle media requests. There are already 17 interview requests from major networks. Tell them no comments beyond our prepared statement," Maya instructed. "This is a private family matter that happened to become public. Our focus remains on next week's IPO." After ending the call, Maya found Marcus sitting beside her on the bed, his steady presence as reassuring now as it had been when she was a struggling single mother. "The boys?" she asked. "Still sleeping, but they'll see this soon enough." As if summoned by their conversation, Adam appeared in the doorway of the connecting room, his analytical eyes already sharpened with understanding. "The confrontation with Sebastian Reed has gone viral," he stated matter-of-factly, his tablet displaying multiple news sites. "Alexander is checking stock market reactions, and Anthony is drafting potential responses for our social media presence." Maya marveled at her son's composure. At 14, they were handling this media explosion with more maturity than most adults would muster. Within minutes, all three boys had joined their parents, each approaching the situation through their unique strengths. "Our stock futures are actually up 7% in pre-market trading," Alexander reported, showing his screen. "The narrative of the abandoned mother building a billion-dollar company is resonating with investors. People are overwhelmingly supportive on social media," Anthony added. "The hashtag #ReedWilliams confrontation is trending globally." Adam, ever the strategic thinker, cut to the core issue. "We need to see exactly what was captured on video. The hotel security cameras and guests' phones likely recorded everything." Maya nodded, mentally bracing herself to relive last night's confrontation, a moment she had simultaneously dreaded and prepared for during 15 years of building her company. The encounter had unfolded rapidly in the VIP corridor. Maya had just concluded her acceptance speech when Sebastian approached, his voice trembling with an emotion she couldn't immediately identify. "Maya," he had called, the name sounding foreign on his lips after so many years. "We need to talk. In private." She had paused, surprised not by his presence. She had spotted him earlier, but by his directness. The triplets, sensing tension, had immediately formed a protective semicircle around her, an instinctive reaction that spoke volumes about their bond. "Sebastian Reed," she had acknowledged with professional neutrality. "I didn't expect to see you here. I need to speak with you," he had insisted, stepping closer, his eyes fixed not on her, but on the three teenagers whose features mirrored his own. About them. Anthony, with his exceptional emotional intelligence, had immediately understood the situation. "Who is this, Mom?" he had asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. "An old acquaintance," Maya had replied calmly. "From my Stanford days." Sebastian's face had twisted with desperation as he lowered his voice. "Maya, please, they are my sons too." The silence that followed had been deafening. Adam had studied Sebastian's face with scientific precision, clearly mapping the genetic similarities. Alexander had tensed visibly, while Anthony's expression had shifted from confusion to dawning comprehension. "Your sons?" Adam had finally asked, his logical mind demanding clarification. "What's happening, Mom?" Marcus had stepped forward protectively, his hand steady on Maya's shoulder. "This isn't the appropriate time or place, Mr. Reed." "When would be appropriate?" Sebastian had demanded, his voice rising enough to attract attention from nearby photographers. 15 years ago, when you disappeared with my children?" Maya's laugh had been brief and incredulous. "Disappeared? You have the audacity to use that word?" The cool professional mask had slipped momentarily, revealing a flash of the pain she had carried. "Adam, show Mr. Reed that file we keep in the safe, the one marked Attempts." Though confused, Adam had responded to his mother's confidence, retrieving his tablet and navigating to an encrypted folder. After a few taps, he had handed the device to Sebastian. On screen, organized chronologically, were scans of dozens of letters marked "Return to Sender," screenshots of unanswered emails sent to every Reed Petroleum address, and logs of phone calls to the Reed mansion, all blocked or ignored. 5 years of persistent attempts to establish contact, all systematically rejected. "The last attempt was on their 3rd birthday," Maya had explained, her voice controlled despite the audience gathering discreetly around them. "I decided it was time to stop living in the past." Sebastian's face had drained of color as he scrolled through the evidence. My parents must have intercepted." "Spare me," Maya had cut him off. "You were 24 when you threw me out of your life, an adult who made a conscious choice." By then, the triplets had been watching the exchange with expressions that evolved from confusion to understanding. The pieces were fitting together in their brilliant minds. "You're our biological father," Alexander had stated flatly, not a question, but a conclusion. "The one who abandoned our mother when she was pregnant." Sebastian had swallowed hard, his confident facade crumbling. "Things weren't exactly like that. You transferred $10,000 for an abortion and blocked any attempt at contact?" Anthony had interrupted, his natural communication skills now wielded like a precise weapon. "Seems pretty clear to me." Journalists had begun edging closer, sensing the explosive story unfolding before them. The CEO of a petroleum company in decline, confronted by the children he had rejected, now heirs to the energy empire that was systematically overtaking his family business. "Maya," Sebastian had lowered his voice desperately, "let's resolve this like adults. I can recognize them legally, offer a trust fund." "A trust fund?" Adam had laughed, displaying the same crooked smile Sebastian saw in the mirror daily. "Our mother built a multi-billion-dollar company. I believe we're financially secure. Besides," Anthony had added with devastating precision, "we already have a father, the one who taught us to ride bikes and helped with our homework, the one who chose to love us when you chose to reject us." Now, as the family watched a shaky cell phone video of this exchange on social media, Maya observed her son's reactions carefully. Their lives had been peaceful and structured despite their extraordinary achievements. This public revelation could change everything. "Are you okay?" she asked them collectively. Adam nodded first, analytical as always. The statistical probability of this confrontation was inevitable once we achieved public recognition. I've been preparing for it since I confirmed our genetic connection. Alexander shrugged. His engineering genetics were useful, I suppose, but Dad is the one who helped me build my first circuit. Anthony, typically the most emotionally expressive, looked thoughtful. I feel sorry for him in a way. He missed knowing us. That's his loss, not ours. Marcus squeezed Maya's hand, pride evident in his expression. They had raised remarkable young men whose sense of identity wasn't shaken by this public revelation. Throughout the day, the story exploded across media platforms. Sebastian's publicist released a terse statement claiming he had been unaware of the triplets' existence and requesting privacy during this sensitive family matter. The claim was immediately undermined when the Wall Street Journal published excerpts from Maya's attempts file, including the damning transfer receipt with its cruel abortion instructions. By evening, Reed Petroleum's stock had plummeted 30%, while Williams Energy's pre-IPO valuation estimates were revised upward. Investment analysts pointed to the compelling leadership narrative and generational talent pipeline of the Williams family as factors driving increased interest. In the privacy of their suite, Maya finally allowed herself a moment of vulnerability with Marcus after the boys had gone to bed. "Did I handle it right?" she asked, "exposing them to this public scrutiny?" Marcus considered carefully before answering. "You didn't choose the timing or the venue. Sebastian did, approaching you at a high-profile event. You've protected them their entire lives, Maya. You can't shield them from their own history forever." Later that night, Maya's phone displayed a text from an unknown number. "Please meet me, alone. We need to resolve this before the media destroys what's left of both our reputations. Sebastian." After considerable thought, Maya replied, "Starlight Cafe, Santa Monica, 10 a.m. tomorrow. Public enough to be appropriate, private enough for a real conversation." The following morning, Maya entered the cafe to find Sebastian already waiting, the past week having exacted a visible toll. He looked haggard, the polished CEO image replaced by a man whose world had imploded spectacularly. "Sebastian," she acknowledged, taking the seat across from him. "Thank you for coming," he began, pushing an untouched coffee aside. "I'll be direct. The board has removed me as CEO. The company my great-grandfather founded is now run by outside executives who are considering a merger with BP." "I'm sorry about that," Maya replied sincerely, surprising herself with the genuine sentiment. "But that doesn't answer my question. What do you really want?" Sebastian looked out the window momentarily, as if gathering courage. "When I saw you at that gala, with your sons, something broke inside me. It wasn't just envy of your success or regret about missing fatherhood. It was the realization of how empty my life is." As Maya confronted Sebastian alone in that cafe, her sons were already collaborating on their own response to the situation, not realizing that their collective decision about meeting their biological father would become the true test of Maya's character 3 weeks later. Maya stood to leave the cafe. Her meeting with Sebastian concluded. His final question lingered in the air between them. "What should I tell the press?" "The truth would be refreshing, Sebastian. Try it sometime," she had replied before walking away, leaving him alone with his regrets. 3 weeks passed in a whirlwind of activity. Williams Energy's IPO had exceeded all expectations, the stock price jumping 42% on the first day of trading. Maya had successfully navigated the media storm surrounding Sebastian's revelation, maintaining her dignity and protecting her sons from excessive scrutiny. The public narrative had largely settled into one that celebrated her resilience rather than sensationalizing the scandal. At home in Malibu, Maya sat in the family room with Marcus, listening to the triplets debate their response to Sebastian's letter. Each boy had received an identical envelope containing a handwritten note expressing remorse and requesting the opportunity to meet them when they felt ready. Scientifically speaking, understanding our genetic heritage could provide valuable medical information, Adam reasoned, always approaching decisions through logic. There are inherited conditions in the Reed family that we should be aware of. Anthony, who had initially expressed the most anger about Sebastian's rejection, surprised everyone with his perspective. "I think I want to meet him too. Not as a father figure, but to understand his story. People are complicated, and even terrible choices can have context." Alexander remained silent longest, fiddling with a circuit board as he processed his thoughts. "I don't need another father," he finally said, glancing at Marcus with undisguised affection. "But I'll go if Adam and Anthony want to. We do everything important together." Maya watched her sons with a mixture of pride and concern. At 14, they demonstrated emotional maturity that many adults never achieved. Still, meeting Sebastian would inevitably be complicated. "Whatever you decide, "We support you," Marcus assured them. "This is your heritage and your choice." The following Saturday, Maya drove Adam and Anthony to a small park overlooking the Pacific where Sebastian had suggested meeting. Alexander had ultimately decided to stay home, working on his latest innovation with Marcus. As she parked the car, Maya felt a strange sense of completion, a circle closing after 15 years. "Are you nervous?" she asked her sons. "Curious," Adam corrected. "Nervous implies fear of negative consequences. I'm simply gathering data." Anthony smiled. "I'm a little nervous, but ready." Sebastian was already waiting at the designated bench, 3 carefully wrapped packages beside him. Maya noted how different he looked from his polished corporate image. Casual clothes, hair slightly disheveled, the arrogance replaced by visible anxiety. When he spotted them approaching, he stood awkwardly, clearly uncertain about proper protocol. "Thank you for coming," he said, addressing the boys directly. "I know this is unusual." "That's one word for it," Anthony replied, studying the man whose genetic material he carried. After brief introductions, Maya stepped back. "I'll be at the cafe across the street. Take whatever time you need." As she walked away, she heard Adam beginning his methodical questioning about family medical history. Maya smiled slightly, imagining Sebastian facing her son's relentless analytical mind. For 2 hours, Maya watched from a distance as Sebastian spoke with her sons. She couldn't hear their conversation, but she observed their body language. Adam's focused attention, Anthony's expressive gestures, Sebastian's gradually relaxing posture. At one point, Sebastian opened a photo album, pointing to pictures of his parents and grandparents. Adam leaned forward with interest, clearly noting the genetic similarities, while Anthony asked questions that made Sebastian occasionally laugh or look thoughtful. When the meeting concluded, the boys walked back to Maya while Sebastian remained at the bench, watching them go with an expression she couldn't quite interpret. Not quite loss, not quite acceptance, but something in between. "How was it?" she asked as they climbed into the car. "Enlightening," Adam replied. "I've documented 17 hereditary traits that clearly follow Mendelian inheritance patterns from the Reed lineage." Anthony was quieter than usual. "He's not what I expected," he finally said. "He's sad. Not evil, just someone who made a terrible choice when he was young and has regretted it ever since. He showed us pictures of his parents. They were awful people, Mom. The way they raised him explains a lot. Understanding doesn't equal forgiveness," Adam pointed out, "but it does provide context." Maya nodded, impressed by their maturity. "Are you glad you went?" Both boys considered this carefully. "Yes," they answered simultaneously. That evening, Maya found Marcus in their home office reviewing the final paperwork for the foundation she had established using Sebastian's Reed Petroleum shares. The Williams Future Foundation would provide scholarships for single mothers pursuing education in STEM fields, with special provisions for those facing circumstances similar to Maya's 15 years ago. "How did it go?" Marcus asked, setting aside the documents. "Better than I expected," Maya admitted. Sebastian was respectful and appropriate. No grand gestures or attempts to buy their affection, just honest conversation and family history. "And how do you feel about it?" Marcus's question went deeper than the surface events. Maya sat beside him, considering. "Strangely peaceful. Seeing him with them wasn't painful like I thought it might be. It just seemed right somehow. Not because he deserves their time, but because they deserve to know their complete story." 3 days later, a final letter arrived from Sebastian, addressed to the entire family. Maya gathered everyone in the living room to read it aloud. "To Maya, Marcus, Adam, Alexander, and Anthony," she began. "I'm writing to express my deepest gratitude for the opportunity to meet Adam and Anthony last weekend. The chance to speak with them, however briefly, was more than I deserved after my unforgivable actions 15 years ago. I want to assure you that I harbor no expectations of an ongoing relationship or further meetings, though I would welcome them if ever desired. I respect that Marcus is their father in every way that matters, and I make no claim to that sacred role he has earned through years of love and presence. Maya, the empire you've built, both your remarkable company and your extraordinary family, stands as testament to your vision and character. The world is better for having William's energy in it, and these three brilliant young men represent a legacy far greater than anything the Reed name could have offered them. I've made arrangements to leave the country indefinitely. My resignation from Reed Petroleum is complete, and I'll be relocating to a small coastal town in Portugal where I'm funding marine conservation efforts. This isn't an attempt to earn redemption, some debts can never be repaid, but rather a search for purpose in whatever years remain to me. With respect and admiration, Sebastian Reed. Alexander, who had been skeptical about the entire situation, spoke first. That was actually decent of him. Yes, Maya agreed softly. I think it was. Life gradually returned to its rhythm in the weeks that followed. William's energy continued its expansion, the triplets immersed themselves in summer research projects, and the media's interest in the Reed-Williams connection faded as newer scandals emerged. Sebastian's departure from public life seemed complete. Occasional photos appeared of him walking Portuguese beaches or volunteering at conservation sites, but he made no further attempts to contact Maya or the boys. On the morning of the triplets' 15th birthday, the family gathered on their beach in Malibu for a small celebration before the larger party planned for later. Maya watched her sons racing along the shoreline, their identical forms silhouetted against the sunrise. Behind her, Marcus arranged breakfast on the terrace, the life they had built together both simpler and richer than anything she could have imagined in those dark days after Sebastian's rejection. 3 sealed envelopes waited on the gift table. Maya and Marcus had decided it was time to give the boys complete access to the historical records of those early years, including all of Maya's attempted communications with Sebastian and the documentation of her struggle to build a life for them. The decision whether to read these records would be theirs alone. "Do you think they'll want to see him again?" Marcus asked, joining her at the railing. "Maybe," Maya replied thoughtfully. "Adam certainly will, out of scientific curiosity if nothing else. Anthony probably, given his interest in understanding different human perspectives. Alexander is harder to predict." "And how would you feel about that?" Maya smiled, watching the empire she had built, not just the business valued at $12 billion with projects on 5 continents, but the family forged through hardship and love. Sebastian had departed to seek his own redemption in quiet conservation work, his journey separate but parallel to theirs. The anger that once fueled her determination had long since transformed into something more valuable: purpose, integrity, and genuine joy. "I feel like we've completed a circle," she answered finally. "This isn't about forgiveness or reconciliation. It's about liberation. All of us, me, the boys, even Sebastian, finally free to move forward without the shadows of the past." As stars began fading in the early morning sky, Maya contemplated the extraordinary journey that began with that terrible moment of rejection. The pain that once threatened to destroy her had become the foundation upon which she built not just a fortune, but a life of purpose, integrity, and true love. That abandonment, ironically, had been her first step toward freedom. If you enjoyed today's video, I'm sure you'll love the next one. Don't waste time. Just click on the screen.